was coughing profusely. And I also remember the look on her face, the last look that we gave each other. It was like a goodbye, and we almost knew that this is the end. Coming back to this reality, from there, it felt like, jarring. I could feel the difference that, there's so much artificial scarcity in the present time.
Rio Kashyap, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about past lives because it's something that I haven't spoke to someone about before, so this will be new for me. But as a start, can you just give us a basic definition of what past life regression is?
Yeah, so if I give a basic definition, past life regression is basically like a guided meditation. So your practitioner guides you through a process where you relax your body, you relax your mind, and you go into your subconscious mind space. And in that space, you are able to navigate. So basically, you are able to ask a question, and your subconscious mind takes you to whatever the answer is to that question. So if you're using it particularly for experiencing your past lives, you can ask, what is the root cause of XYZ problem in your life? And then it can take you to somewhere in the past. So usually people go to their past lives, but they can also go to a past event in their present life or their childhood if the issue originates in the childhood, or in the mother's womb, in their past lives, or even lives between lives. So when they are in between two lives, right? So that is a gist of what it is.
Okay, that's so cool. Thank you. And do you think can people access their past lives by themselves or do they need a practitioner?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You can access your past lives by yourself, by all means. So the usual ways people do it is by meditating. So if you are a regular meditator, at some point you might have flashes of your past lives, and it's a very common experience that people have in meditation. So when your past lives come forward, it's a way of the spirit to dissolve your karma. So basically, when you are viewing them, you're experiencing all the emotions, you are getting answers to some of your questions, you're basically dissolving your karma there. So whenever you start any kind of spiritual practice, your past lives can come up at that point. And if you specifically want to experience your past lives yourself, you can either go to YouTube, find a guided meditation, and practice in that way. But the only drawback of that, I would say, is that you are just listening to a recording and it's not adjusted to what you are experiencing in the real time, right? The audio might just keep going on to the next step, but you are actually in the past life and you are viewing it. You want to stay there, right? So things like that, and it's difficult. It's impossible actually to for a recording to help you navigate the past life as required. Yeah.
Okay. And how did your past lives come up? Did your past lives come up through the help of a practitioner or were they by yourself?
Yeah, for me, I always had like many different spiritual experiences in my life, but there was one spiritual experience that happened in 2017 when my grandfather's spirit visited me, and that experience opened my channels up, opened my energies. And a few weeks after that, spontaneously, I started seeing my past lives in my dreams. So every night I would enter somebody else's body, and I could actually feel like I was in their body and I was experiencing what they were experiencing in their life. I knew their past and I was able to experience the emotions that they were experiencing and know their story. And initially, I didn't know that these were past lives. I thought these are just short stories because I'm also a writer, so I love writing. So I wrote all those stories and people loved them. And side by side, I was also Googling about what this is, and I came across that this could be your past lives. So, coincidentally or not so coincidentally, in the same city where I was, that was Bengaluru, India, there was the best institute of past life regression therapy teaching in India. So, I signed up. There was an interview process. I went through it and got selected, and then it is there that I learned everything about past life regression and how you can actually use it to access your past lives. And during the course itself, again, we practiced on each other, and during one such session, I experienced the same past lives that I was experiencing in my dreams, but with much greater intensity. And I was also able to heal those and, move on from there.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's so cool to hear. And I know that you remembered many of your past lives, but there's one specifically that I would like to talk to you about today, and that is your past life in Lemuria. So, could you tell us about your past life and what was your life in Lemuria like?
Yeah, so I did not expect it when it happened. I didn't know anything about Lemuria at that time. I only knew the word Atlantis, that's it. Like, I was not into those kinds of, so called fantasy spiritual worlds. So I was completely taken by surprise when this happened. And the reason that happened was that I was unable to practice for about 2 years after I learned past life regression therapy, because my life was just completely thrown into chaos, and I had to, heal myself and bring myself to that level that I'm able to help other people. And there was this imposter syndrome or lack of confidence, and I was not basically believing in my ability to help people heal in this way. So, but I knew that this is my sole purpose. So I wanted to bring myself up to that. So I told my guides, help me gain this confidence, help me know that I am cut out to do this. And I meditated to find the answer. Nothing happened during the meditation, but right after I finished, I felt this urge to go lie down on the bed, and I thought maybe I'm sleepy. So I just went down and I thought I would sleep. But as soon as I closed my eyes, I found myself in the body of another person. And I could feel that it was a guy, like a very tall, 7, 8 foot guy. And right in front of my face, there was another person, like at this distance. And I was so surprised, so taken aback by that I woke up. I opened my eyes and I was like, oh my god, what is this? Yeah, that was the first time when I was having an actual past life regression experience, while I am in my senses, like while I'm awake, not in a dream state, right? And I was like, okay, this is probably a past life. Let me just go in again and see what's happening, explore it. So I basically was guiding myself and doing a past life regression on myself. So I went in with an intention to look around and see the scene and see what's happening. So I closed my eyes and I found myself back there again. And now I see the another person standing in front of me, and we are in a vehicle of sorts. So it's like an egg-shaped vehicle, and it's like a bus. So there's a driver in the front. There are 2 rows of seats, and it's only me and him and another 2 girls in the bus. And with like a sense of knowing, I get to know that this person is my best friend. And when I look back towards those girls, I felt like a connection with one of those girls. I felt like she was my love interest, one of the girls that was sitting on the window side. And I came back once again. I opened my eyes once again, and I was like, okay, this is for sure a past life experience happening, and I want to know more. So I again closed my eyes and instructed myself to get to know more. And this time when I closed my eyes, I was hearing this word being shouted in my ear: Lemurian, Lemurian, Lemurian. Like 3 times I heard it in my own voice.
Whoa.
And I took a mental note of it. I said, okay, when I get out of this, I will Google what this is, but let me just experience what's happening. So I went in again and I see that we're wearing something like white, long dresses with a headgear, just like Arabs wear. And the women, they were wearing something like a sari, but not exactly a sari. Like it was layered and it was meeting in the middle. All the layers were meeting in the middle. and their dresses were dark in color, like dark indigo, dark maroon, and there were gold trinkets like they were sewn into the fabric, so the fabric itself was like very rich, and they were wearing a lot of gold jewelry, and something told me that this is their normal everyday wear. It's not something, for festivals or something like that. Yeah, so then I was like looking at that girl's face who I was interested in, and she was probably the most beautiful woman that I've ever seen. And I'm saying this as a woman right now, probably because I had a love interest in her. And I was laughing with my best friend, looking at her and laughing amongst ourselves. And she was doing the same with her friend, and there was this back and forth going on, and I wanted to know what her name was, so I asked my best friend, that guy, what is her name. And when I was speaking that, I was feeling my jaws move in that
Whoa.
body, but I was also feeling very stupid because in that life I already know her name. So why am I asking him that? But because I wanted to know, I asked him. And he was like, what do you mean her name is Clue? So, like, her name is Clue, and this is what I call my husband right now. And I don't know
Whoa.
where this name came from, like what is Clue, but I just call him that for some reason.
And you called him that before you had this past life regression?
Yeah, I've been calling him ever since we got married, and even he's like, what is this name that you've given me? I'm never able to take his present life name. It feels very weird. I just call him Clue. And so I don't know probably if that was her name or that was a way that he told me that this is your husband, in that life. So it could be anything. So I was looking at her and she was laughing at me, and this was just back and forth going on. And I wanted to look around what's there, and I see that that vehicle is moving on a track. So it moves like in a particular way on a track. And I looked outside. On my right side, I could see that there was like this vast ocean. And in that ocean, I could also see again egg shaped ships. So those ships were like closed, completely closed. And there were windows, and those were very colorful, like blue, yellow, like that. And all the windows had gold highlights around them. So like it was very beautiful, intricate, artistic world. And on my left side, I could see a mountain range. So it was a mountain range, and then forest, and then the tracks. And the mountain range, like where it ends, there were huge statues that were carved into the mountain face, and those statues also were reflecting gold highlights. So, there were also again a lot of like jewelry on those statues. I don't know if that was jewelry or it was paint, but gold was very excessively used in that civilization, I could say, and it was very artistic and beautiful. And so then I move on from that scene and I enter into a scene where I'm at my home, and I'm able to see that it's like a tropical area, tropical air. I could smell it as well. There were like coconut trees, palm trees all around, and all the houses, they had private rooms and public rooms. So all the houses, like, they were open from the front. So basically all the rooms that were on the front, they were open to anyone, so anyone could come and sit there or even live there. But the the rooms at the back, they were like the private rooms. So it was like that. And I briefly stopped and talked to a neighbor about something. When I came out, I forgot about that. I don't remember what I talked about. And then I instructed myself actually to go to the end of that life and see why is this being shown to me. So then I saw myself that I was like knee deep in dirt, and I was a construction worker, so I was making those tracks for those vehicles. And my wife, so she was now my wife, she was standing on the platform, and there were some other people as well. And I was constructing, but there were no tools. So I don't know how I was, building those tracks, but I was like knee deep in dirt. And then all of a sudden, we hear like a rumble and a huge noise, like an explosion. And we look at each other's face, and something told us that this is the end, because the rumble, the way the earth moved, it was just too much. It was like huge. So I looked at my back, and I could see that the mountain with the huge statues, it's now beginning to collapse. So it's like coming down. And I could see like the dust cloud rising and all of those things happening. And I looked at her once again. And before we could even say anything, I found myself buried in the dirt. So now the dirt was all over me, all above my body, and on, like my face. And I actually had dirt in my eyes, nose, mouth, and I started coughing. So this is how I came out of that life. Like I was coughing profusely. And I also remember the look on her face, the last look that we gave each other. It was like a goodbye, and we almost knew that this is the end. And that's how I came out. So as soon as I came out, I was like, okay, this is definitely a past life experience. Let me Google what Lemurian is. And after that, I probably went down a rabbit hole of like 3 hours just looking up everything about Lemuria that I could. And my mind was completely blown, because I thought that Atlantis was just a fantasy. But then I came to know about Lemuria, had this experience. So not only Atlantis is true for me, but also Lemuria now. And I had a sense that that society was a completely positive society, equal society. So everyone was paid equally, no matter what their work was in the society. And everyone was prosperous, happy, and used their talents in the best way possible. So they were fulfilled. And coming back to this reality from there, it felt like, jarring. I could feel the difference, that there's so much artificial scarcity in the present time, and inequality. Right? And so when I came out of the whole experience, it became clear to me that I'm not this small little insignificant girl. The thing that I was considering myself, like, who am I to do this? Now I had an understanding that even though I had all these past life experiences, this was a significant one. Not only because it was a detailed one, but also because it showed me that I was probably present so many years before. It's not confirmed how old Lemuria was. Probably some people say 100,000 years, some say 200,000 years. I don't know the exact thing, but even that is a lot of amount of time. So I felt like, okay, I'm not this small little girl. I was someone at that time, someone who was spiritually advanced, and so many years ago. So I have this much experience within my soul to be able to help other people. And you won't believe, something changed, something in my energy shifted that day, because in the evening I got my first call from my first past life regression client. And yeah, and I hadn't advertised myself yet. So she found me from somewhere on Google, and then she called me right away, booked the session. So that was my so-called initiation to this reality.
Wow, that's so cool. And you said that the houses were open. So there was
Yeah.
a public area and a private area. So does that mean there wasn't you didn't have to worry about stealing, you didn't have to worry about people committing crime?
Yeah, none of that at all. And everyone had that. So basically, you could go anywhere and just live, and you could travel anywhere and just have a place to be. And it was so wonderful.
Wow. So you would say this society was more advanced than the society that we have today.
Yeah, definitely advanced. I would say it was another completely another age, you know.
Mm.
So the whole society was based on these principles and ethics, and everyone followed those things. So there was like no need of any kind of safety or anything. Yeah.
So, do you believe in the cycle of the yugas, like the 26,000 year cycle where we go up in vibration and down in vibration? So, would you say that Lemuria was in the cycle where we as humanity were at a higher vibration?
Yeah, definitely. Before, again, I was doubtful about this, but when I had this experience, I could feel the difference of living there and living here, and
Mm.
it's a completely different world. And when you've been through these lives, you actually carry some of that energy. So basically, you can say that if you are doing good in today's world against all the odds, then you've probably been in those times where these things were the norm.
Okay. And you also said when you woke up that you were aware that you were living in artificial scarcity. So can you explain what you mean by artificial scarcity?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, in today's world, like even if the whole planet is available to us, you know, we are born on this planet just like any other animal, we should be able to go anywhere and, you know, just set up a house in a forest, gather your own wood and make a living, you know, normally live in the forest as you probably would on any other planet, right? But there are all these laws about, you know, where you can build a house, where you cannot build a house. And you can take an example of Canada, where I am right now. It's the world's second largest country and has a housing crisis. I mean, it makes no sense, right? And in the same way, um, anybody could be, you know, living off the land and be totally fine, but that's not happening because we have built our society into these structures like cities and taxation system, and only if you have an income and only if you have a credit score you can, you know, get your house, phone, all of these things. So all of these things, they create an artificial scarcity basically for some people who are unable to live in that system for any reason, whereas they should have an option to still make a living outside of the system, and it's just not happening. So artificial scarcity. And if we talk about money, that is again something that is creating artificial scarcity. Basically, if you have more of it, only then you're able to enjoy life, otherwise you are just living on survival, right?
That was something poignant that you said that interested me because that's something that has been on my heart recently, that scarcity isn't true. It's not how we should be living and it's not how
Yeah.
we have to be living. We can live in abundance and nature shows us that abundance is real.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Just look around, like how many trees and grass, flowers, rivers all around you, but you are unable to, you know, make a living out of those things.
Yeah.
How? Why? Because
Mm.
Earth is available to everyone, just like all the other animals. It's available to us, but something is stopping us. All these structures are stopping us from utilizing those things.
So, do you think that we could one day go back to a society similar to Lemuria or potentially even more advanced?
Yeah, so just as this is a cycle of time, so there will be a time when the humanity will collectively grow and grow into this wonderful society once again, where we learn that if we create all these artificial structures that are away from nature, that take us away from nature, then that is not sustainable. So instead of working against nature, we should work with nature and, you know, build our cities in conjunction with nature, and in a way that is, you know, doesn't destroy nature, but actually we use nature in a such a way that we are able to live in symbiosis is the word. Right? There are so
Yeah.
many other animals who live in symbiosis with other animals and plants, and we as humans can do the same.
Mm. Yeah, I love that mindset. I think that is the mindset that's going to help us get to that point.
Yes.
So, not only have you had past life regression of your life in Lemuria, but so many other past lives. So, how old do you think your soul is?
So if you talk about a particular soul, let's say if you talk about just my soul, then I would say that I don't know because everyone is a part of the same, ultimately, like everyone is a part of the same God energy. So, okay, let me give you an analogy what I use to explain the deepest understanding I have of this concept. So, if you think of the collection of souls or the place where souls come from, like an ocean. So let's say it's an ocean of energy, and when you are born, you take a drop from that ocean and you are born with that essence. Okay, so that ocean doesn't just contain your own experiences, but it contains everyone else's experiences as well, right? So when you're taking a drop from that ocean, you cannot say what you're getting. It's a mixture of things, right? And when you live this life and die and go back again to the same ocean, you are again mixing up with the same pool of energy, right? So whatever you experiences you had, learning you had, you again added to that ocean, right? So we are one and the same, but when we are born, we just become a little more physical, a little more individualized. But ultimately, we go and merge in that same ocean. So if you talk about like me in particular, yes, like I could be in Lemuria at that time, but another person could also have the same experience as me because they also have a part of that water drop in them, you
Mm.
know so
Okay.
this is why like so many people have this is why so many people have experiences where they are the same person in the past, right? This is why I think is the reason, because when you're taking a drop you can't direct like, okay, I only want this much, you are just taking from the mixture. That is how I understand it.
Something that you said earlier about that whenever you went into Lemuria, you saw your partner who was your partner in this life, Clue.
Yeah.
So, did you and Clue have many past lives together, or is there some sort of soul bond or soul contract between the two of you?
Yeah, so usually there are soul groups. So group of people who travel together and reincarnate together. So it could be just one person with you, but it usually it's more than just one. Usually soul groups are very very large, and they can include your family, your friends, your co-workers, your bosses, enemies even. So anyone who has a deep impact on your life, emotional impact, any kind of change in your life, they will be in your soul group. And so yeah, I mean, if I talk about my husband, he is a part of my soul group, and I have been in like one-on-one partnership with him in Lemuria. And then after that I had a few more spontaneous regressions. They were just very very small ones, like flashes that I saw. One of them was that um, I was like in the middle of a war, and I was a small child, a boy, and I didn't have my parents with me. So I don't know if I was an orphan or I lost my parents somewhere, but I was just running around, and I find like a manhole, and I pick up the cover and I enter it. And when I enter it, I see there are already so many people inside that sewage pipe or whatever it was, and there were already so many people and so many kids hiding there. So I was like, okay, I'll hide here as well. So I was sitting there with them, and as I was sitting there, I could see like there were so many mice all around me, and dirt and filth and so much, smell. And all these people are just huddling in the corner, and I see there are two more boys, small boys, in front of me, and one of them is my husband, and the other one was my best friend in present life. And I could recognize them immediately that they were with me there as well. And then we spend a few days there, and then we come out of that sewage pipe after a few days when we feel it's safe to come out. And I still remember, like, when I opened the cover and I came out, like the light that entered our eyes, like it was so blinding. And after that, I don't remember anything. So that was just like a flash I got. And yeah, another one I got a flash of with him was that I was somewhere in Ireland, probably. I was a high school girl, and he was my high school sweetheart, and we were just, in the high school, but he was an Indian boy in that life as well, and people used to bully me for liking him, and I was a white girl, so that was happening. Yeah, so a few lives we did have together. The longest time that I might have spent with him was in Lemuria. Other ones were just, brief encounters, and then we have the present life now. And when we met in this life as well, we were just online friends for some time, and we you just used to discuss about, the state of the world. And both of us were in photography. My husband is a photographer, a professional one. I was, practicing it as a hobby, and we were kind of in the same circle of photographers. And back in those times, Instagram was new, and he was a famous Instagrammer at that time in India. And I just used to, compliment his photos and talk to him in the DMs about what's going on in the world, and all the emotional aspects, and we resonated a lot with our thoughts. And one day I was coming back from Bengaluru to my hometown, and my flight was stopping in Delhi. So I just told him we could meet for probably 2 hours, during my layover, and he said okay. And he came there, and as soon as I saw him, I had like an instant soul recognition, and the same thing with him. And we were just looking at each other for like a few seconds, like because it hit both of us, at the same time. It was like, where were you? Like, we finally found each other again. It was like that kind of a knowing that we had. And right from the moment we met physically in person, it was understood for both of us. We were already husband and wife in that moment.
Wow.
And there was like no intention of like starting a relationship or anything before we met. And instant recognition, and he said, I'm going to introduce you to my parents now. So from there we went to his parents' house directly, and that's
Whoa, the
how.
first day you met him
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this life.
Yeah, and there was no doubts about it. And we
Mm.
got married on the 20th day of meeting each other.
Wow, that's an amazing
Yeah.
story. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And in your past lives, you were different genders. You were women and men. So why do you think that before our soul reincarnates that we choose a specific gender?
Yeah, because of the difference in the learning every gender gets. So you can have some type of experiences with only the male gender, and then totally different ones with female gender, and depends on like what your goals are as a soul.
And so after your past life regressions, especially the one since Lemuria, you said that that was kind of your initiation into being able to give other people or past life regression as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So do you think that your psychic abilities opened up more because you were able to go into that life?
Yes, so usually when you go into these altered states of your mind, so it could be your past lives, it could be a deep meditative session, it could be a healing session, it could be a Reiki session, could be anything. So whenever you go into these deep meditative states, you're basically clearing up your karma, one. And two, you could also be enhancing your abilities. And doesn't matter whether you intend to do that or not, but it's just a byproduct of your spiritual growth that your psychic abilities open up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And and having gone through multiple past lives, how do you see your current life now? How has your perspective on life changed in general?
Yeah, that's a very good question because once your eyes open up to this reality, it's impossible to go back. So, the person you were before you had such an experience, and the person you are now, the outlook, the way you behave, the way you interact with people, the way you look at people, the way you look at your problems, the way you solve your problems, everything changes. And you just become a completely new person because you now have this deep perspective of life. You know that the other person has been there with you probably in some life, and if they are hurting you in some way, it's only because of the soul plan that we have brought into this life. They are enacting a role that they were given, and because they are not conscious of it, they don't know it, but you are. So you can see it, right?
Right.
So you basically develop more compassion, and I won't say that it totally disappears. You still get hurt, you still react, you still get angry, but you have this background of information that allows you to move on faster, heal faster, and probably not react in a negative way all the time. And it actually helped me go through some very difficult times in my life. So as soon as I learned my past life regression therapy course, I my life was thrown into chaos. As I said, I lost all the people in my family because they completely rejected me. Probably I raised my vibration, or probably I jumped into another timeline, I don't know, but I don't know why, like, their behavior completely changed towards me. And I had to move out of my house. So basically I lost my whole family, my career, everything in just one night. And that experience for anyone else could have been um, extremely devastating and, you know completely destroying. But for me, because I had this knowledge, I found it easier to not only go through it, but also to heal myself and then come back out the other side, you know, in a better way and faster than probably some other people. I also dealt with PTSD. I also dealt with all of those things. But having this background of knowledge was extremely helpful for me, you know.
Yeah. Right, I can see where it just would completely change your worldview and
Yeah.
your view on life in general. So, my last question for you today is what do you think your soul purpose is?
So, as humans on this earth, we have many, many different soul purposes. Every person is here to do a lot of work, and anything, I would say, if you like doing anything, that is your sole purpose. So, if you like to paint, that is your purpose. If you like to, I don't know, build houses, that's your purpose. If you like to talk to people, if you like to heal people, that's your purpose. um, so we have multiple different purposes, and it's not that you have to just stick with one. It's not that you have to make all of them your career. You can make one or two of them your career. It's not, humanly possible to have everything as your career. So I would say the main one that outshines everything is spiritual teachings. So before it was spiritual healing, but in every session, I was being aware of the fact that I was actually coaching people more than actually doing the healing stuff. And then now that I am a spiritual mentor first and healer second, I look back in my life and I see that actually I was teaching people all my life, coaching and teaching. So when I was little, during my childhood, I was teaching my sister. So my sister is younger, 3 years younger than me. And everything I would learn in school, I would come home and tell her, "Do you know what I learned today? It is so exciting. Do you know how seasons work? Do you know how photosynthesis work? Do you know how this happens?" And she used to be so excited to listen to all of that. And then she would be far ahead of her peers in her class only because I already taught her everything. And I was so excited about sharing knowledge, basically,
Yeah.
right? And I did the same during my graduation when I was studying dentistry. I was teaching my coworkers, I was teaching my colleagues, and they loved how I learned things, how I read books, and then put all that information into bullet points, very easily digestible, and how I could find connections between totally different things. And I would like share those connections with those people, and then they would have all these profound understandings of these concepts that were otherwise very difficult to understand. So there were friends in my class who didn't study but just got a few classes like 1 week before the exams, and they would pass with flying colors.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so and the same thing happened in my post graduation. In your post graduation, you have to teach your juniors. So that's something that is incorporated into the curriculum, right? So I used to like really love to make all these elaborate presentations with all these concepts that I understand from my point of view, not the bookish point of view. And then I would incorporate images, videos, flowcharts, and all of these easy to understand things that other people would just grasp, and people used to wait for my presentations. And now that I look back and I can see that, okay, there was a teacher in me all this time, and I'm just bringing that same thing into my spiritual purpose. And I just love doing that.
Yeah, that's beautiful because now today it's you're using it as your job, as your spiritual coach.
Yeah, and one thing I would like to say more as well is that you can use your purpose in so many ways. So, because teaching is my purpose, I could incorporate in that in everything I do, right? Even if I was in the dental field right now and I was teaching dentistry, I would have been equally happy because teaching is my life purpose, right? So like that, anything could be a life purpose. If you are probably interested in music, let's say, so you can be making music, you can be singing, you can be playing an instrument, you can be teaching music. So there are so many different things that you could be doing with it. So again, it's not something that puts you in a box, but it actually frees you. So to know the things that you like doing and do them in any profession that you choose, you are free in that way.
Or you are a natural teacher in this life,
Yeah.
but is it only this life or can purposes span multiple lives?
Yeah, they can span multiple lives. I haven't seen any of my other life where I was a teacher, but you definitely can have, one single main purpose in multiple lives, definitely.
Okay. And I know that you have a YouTube channel called Esoteria Healing. Could you explain what you're doing there and what you're doing for work as a spiritual mentor?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is a place where I post long form videos, basically, where I am able to talk about anything that I like, basically, anything that's coming up in my head. And long videos, basically, people like to watch for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, or even more. And short form videos, I sometimes post as shorts on YouTube, or Instagram, I use again for short form videos. And As a mentor, as a coach, now I teach other people who also want to work as a spiritual entrepreneur of any kind. So basically, if somebody wants to become a spiritual healer, energy healer, a psychic, tarot card reader, or a witch even, and they find themselves, um, lost in the purpose, what to do, how to start. I teach them the actual skills, the healing skills if they need to, reading skills, protection, business skills, and I also coach them on their purpose. I help them find what exactly it is. Sometimes we need a confirmation, even though you already know. And then how to work on your intuition, how to enhance your abilities, how to offer them to other people, and how to do that in a way that doesn't deplete you and also doesn't harm the other person. And yeah, so I teach all of the things that are surround being a spiritual entrepreneur. And yeah.
Well, you're a beautiful soul, and thank you so much for sharing and talking to me about past life regression and specifically your past life in Lemuria. It has been so fun talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me here. It was so fun talking to you. I really loved your questions, really picked my brain, and you are so beautiful yourself as well. And it's been an honor to come in contact with you. Thank you so much.